All right. So fantastic. Well, we're right on time here. So let's get into it. But I guess first of all, just wanted to welcome everyone. Obviously, for those who don't know me, my name's Luke Bourgeois. I'm the director and co-founder at Voyager. Tonight, really excited to have my good friend and again founder of Mentally Tough Tennis, Dr. Anthony Ross. Fantastic to have you on tonight, Rossi.
Great to be here.
Yeah. And I guess for those who don't know you, Anthony obviously, is a former pro player. So played major at Wimbledon, obviously. So great player in his own right. We did a webinar during lockdown. Obviously, got to know you and your story a bit better, which was great. But again, Anthony's obviously works with many of the world's best. I know a lot of the Aussie pro players, guys like John Millman and Jason Kubler, some of the Aussie players, and again as well as some of the academies all over the world. I think it's in Spain and the States, Asia, and including probably some of the, which I know a lot of our listeners are interested in, is our college pathway, where Anthony works with North Carolina, which is, I'm assuming, still the number one team in the country over in the States there, Rossi?
They did. They won the national indoors. They were one for a while. Unfortunately, they got a few injuries towards the end of the season. So they lost in the NCAA. So they didn't end up number one. But okay. They had a great season.
Yeah, fantastic. But what we're going through tonight, though, again, is something that's really important. It's going to do two things. Obviously, the first thing is really the change of ends routine. We're going to have a bit of a deep dive into that, because how we use our time on court is obviously super critical. And we know how important it is when you get that right. So again, if I'm missing anything out, Anthony, anything you want to say before I sort of kick it off?
No, mate, I reckon we get into it.
Well, again, we want this to be interactive. So if you have any questions, please fire it down there in the questions box, so you can see that down at the bottom of the screen. But I'm sure probably everyone's familiar with Zoom now after being locked down for as long as we were. But I guess what we wouldn't mind doing is for some of our guys in there, and again, I appreciate obviously some of you guys turn the video on. I do encourage that. Is the question of how you use your time at the change of ends. I mean, what are some of the things that you currently do? Is there a process that you use? Because again, we know when we're on the court, only a small portion is actually used hitting balls. Most of the time, it's actually in between point routines, again, which we've worked on, obviously the change of ends, which we're focusing on. So I just wanted to start that there with how you typically use that time.
Why don't we get you guys to write in anything that you do at the change of ends, which you think is helpful or a good use of that time.
A lot of thinking going on, it looks like, Anthony.
Yeah, I think it takes a little bit for the chat to show up.
Yeah,
but, I'm sure we're getting some good reflections here. I mean, we've got 60 seconds, right? And 90 seconds in the juniors. Is it 60 seconds and 90 seconds to actually get back out in the court and ready to play the next game? That's quite a lot of time, right?
Definitely. So who's bold? Who's being brave? Mr. Andy Lee, what do you typically do at the change of ends?
Well, honestly, I just sit down and have a drink. Just think about what I'm doing. That's it.
There we go.
Okay. So taking a drink. Yeah. When you say thinking about what you're doing, what would be an example of something you might think about?
Like, I don't know, like what I'm doing right and what I'm not doing right sometimes.
Okay. So maybe reflect on what's happened in the last couple of games. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I've got a message here. Obviously, people talking about obviously using your towel. I think again, trying to reflect here, going to the next point. People are sort of thinking ahead of what they're trying to do.
Yeah. Why don't we, why don't I get into some ideas of what I think would be the potential ways we can use the change of ends?
Yeah, fantastic.
I'll share my screen.
And while you're doing that, maybe it's a good opportunity here with the silence that we almost got there. It could be something that we can really help everyone with. It's probably give you that formula, that sort of mechanics to.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go. So Andy, so that the basic one that I think we would all do to some degree is to rest, right? The idea is if we're out there, we're playing the 2 games in between each change of ends, and that is mentally and physically takes a lot of energy, right? And so one thing at the change of ends, which I really like at the first thing, is to just chill out, essentially, to rest our body and mind. And so we're really saving our energy for when we step out and play those couple of games. And as soon as we're finished each couple of games, see if we can just completely chill out, rest, let our attention wander, let our mind wander, rest our body physically. And I would say about 20 seconds to do this would be a good idea. Luke, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I know it was actually probably one of the moments that I think back to is obviously, again, a lot of the time I spent with Roger. I think it was 2006. The
great
Fed. Probably, the Roger Federer. I think he was playing the quarterfinals. It was maybe quarterfinals around a 16, and he was playing Nikolai Davydenko. And it was a night match, as he often does, and I was there. And I actually I made the mistake of telling him I was going to take a date to the match. And typically, obviously, being on his team, I'd sit front row in the players' box. And I decided that I was going to try to hide. And I decided to hide in a different section of the crowd. And this Roger is interesting. Him being himself, the playful sort of relaxed guy, he goes, well, I'm going to find you. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to figure out where you're sitting. And it was hilarious because you could see him every time he sat down at the change of ends. And again, huge match. It was I think it was a quarterfinals. And there he was. You could see him sit down, and he was scanning the crowd because on the players section, as you know, it's literally opposite the umpire's chair and where the players sit. And I could just see him scanning. And I think it was about halfway through, the start of the second set, he actually found me because he was trying to get a good close look at who I was with and what I was doing. And he gave a little sort of nod, a little wink. But you could just see that idea for the first part of the change of ends. I mean, he was relaxing. He was resting. He had nothing to do with the match.
Yeah. So I think that's one that everyone should have in mind. As the first thing you guys do is completely just rest your mind, right? Rest your body and just chill out because you've done several minutes of really hard mental and physical work. Step 2 is what I would call reconnect. And to help you guys remember these, I call them words starting with R, okay? So this next idea is that we want to reconnect, and I've got 2 ideas on what we can reconnect to. The first one is we can reconnect to what I would call our performance values, okay? Where typically what's going to happen when we play matches is that we've got these passengers on the bus, right, that are continually, these uninvited thoughts and feelings that are continually trying to convince us of just how important the outcome is. And so often, particularly for you guys, developing players, it's a great idea to try to balance your perspective and connect and reconnect at the change of ends to your bigger purpose than just the winning and the losing, just the outcome of the match. And so a great idea for almost all players is to try to reconnect to the idea that the most important thing about you playing this match is to see if you can act in a way and compete in a way that will mean that you're a better player at the end of the match than you started, regardless of whether you win or lose, okay? So this is reconnecting to the idea that this is an opportunity to improve my skills, okay? Every match you play is an opportunity to improve your skills. So you're a better player for your next match than you were for this match. So that's an example of how we can reconnect to our performance values, okay, to those sort of values. And then the other thing I would say is that we can practice and just have a short time where we try to reconnect to the present moment. So in our rest phase, we're just relaxing completely. In the reconnect phase, we might reconnect to our bigger purpose, but we might also connect to the present moment. And the simplest way I know how to do this and would recommend is as you're taking your drink, and you could to a degree do this during the rest phase, you want to do that mindfully. You want to notice the water going into your mouth and down, and get completely present with the idea of drinking. But you could do anything. You could do it with a towel, right? You could be feeling the towel on your skin. You could be feeling your feet on the ground, as you sit there. So there's heaps of ways you can do this. But these are two things you could reconnect with: the present moment and also your greater purpose. Luke, did you have anything to add to that? And I've got a few examples here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know how easy it is to get caught up with passengers when we're playing, and having that opportunity to use your time, I mean, whether it's 90 seconds or whatnot, is a really, really important thing. And I guess playing on the pros for as long as I did, and seeing a lot of players, you can see how systematic and ritualistic so many players are. And I think that's a really, really good tidbit of advice there as well, is having that opportunity to really reconnect there. And again, finding that ability to come back and center yourself and be focused on what can really help improve. Because we know how easily we can get overwhelmed. So no, I think it's
and a couple of examples of some of the top pros actually having their notes. Now, you guys might have seen this one. Emma Raducanu had her notes to herself were highly based on purpose. So she was really trying to use her change of ends during the US Open to reconnect to her greater purpose, right? So she's talking about things like she's taking care of what she can control. She's reminding herself that she's on her own journey. I'm staying in the moment. I'm focusing on the process. So that gets a little bit into what she wants to commit to when she's going to step back out to the next games. To compare yourself, your results against anyone is the thief of happiness. Okay, so she's reminding herself of that value for her. I trust myself, and it's all mental at the end of the day. So she's reminding herself of the importance of the mental component. And this could be the last time I play here, so I might as well enjoy everything. So she's trying to connect with the enjoyment of the actual process, right? So awesome example of Emma really focusing and connecting to a bigger purpose, okay, of what's most important to her about competing. And then we also have, a couple of years ago, you guys might have also seen this one. This was Andy Murray. And when was this, Luke? This was when he was near the top of the game. Was it one of the big slams? I can't quite remember when the...
Was it London at the end of the year?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I think it was.
I think it was.
So,
it was.
So once again, he's using his time to reconnect to his purposes, right? Just simply trying his best. And then he starts also to go into what we'll talk about next, which is the things he wants to commit to, and checking in on and reminding himself of those. So being intense with your legs, proactive during points, focusing on each point in the process, trying to be the one dictating. So he's talking about his strategy, trying to keep him at the change of ends, keep going on to your serve. Okay, so this is moving into a lot of the things that he wants to commit to during the match. Okay, so with Raducanu, we've got more of the reflection on the purpose and the reconnection, and then with Murray, we're talking more about this the idea of these reflections. Okay, so this is really step 3 for me, where we talked about this at the start, right? So we go from reconnecting to our purpose to really reflecting on what has happened in the last 2 games. Okay, what has happened in the last 2 games since the last change of ends, and things that we want to reflect on. We want to use this as an opportunity to learn, right? To inform what are we going to commit to next. Okay, that's really a key part here, and that takes the reflection. So some examples you might think about is, have you noticed anything about your opponent? Okay, which can put the odds in your favor. It might be something about you that you've noticed about how you're committing. It might be something about the environment. Okay, have you noticed something about the wind, for example, or which ends? So this is the type of things you want to reflect to. And then a big one is reflecting on, like we just checked in with Murray, we start reflecting on our committed actions. So we want to check in at the change of ends and ask ourselves, am I doing a good job of committing to the process that I've chosen for this match? It might be a strategy, right? Have I actually committed during those last 2 games? Or I'd like to encourage you guys to quickly count how many points about you played. So it might be 12, for example. So you might even ask yourself, out of 12 points, how many did I commit to my chosen process? How well is it working? Okay, I've committed 10. What if I played 12 points and I check in on my commitment and I say, well, I only committed 4 out of 12? Then we want to start reflecting on what's stopping me. One of the best things you guys can do during this reflection phase is, this is your time to get back on course, right? Like if you, during a match, if you're going off course, if you're losing commitment, if you are getting caught up in the uninvited frustrations and outcome thoughts and so forth during a match, this is the time to try to, if that's happening, ask and reflect on the key question. Well, what's stopping me? What is happening? Have I just lost concentration? Have I lost connection to my bigger purpose? Am I getting caught up in the and listening to the difficult passengers on the bus that are talking a lot about the outcome, or maybe I'm not executing as well or hitting the ball as well? So that's a really important one. And then finally, in your reflection, when you're getting ready to step back out, we're asking, well, do I want to recommit to the same thing, or do I want to adjust it or even change it based on what I've just reflected on? Okay. So my really strong advice is, when you choose what you're going to commit to in terms through your matches, that when you commit for 2 games. With more experience, like maybe at the professional level, we want players to have the ability to change very quickly what they're committing to. But my really strong advice to you guys is that when you have a commitment, commit to it for at least 2 games, and only change what you're committing to at the change of ends. That's a really simple way to go about it. And in my experience, that's a really helpful one, because if you have the ability to commit point by point, often what I see is players, they change too early and you don't get committed enough to the one that you're going for, or to the 2 things that you're going for. Okay. So that's my advice around the reflections. And then finally, at the recommit stage,
before you do, Anthony, I think it's a really good point to make, because I know often, and again, we're super excited that tournaments are going to be starting to come back up. That's why I think it's a really important time to start going through this. Is I'll be watching matches and you'll see either a couple of things happen, which is when you talk about sort of the strategy, there is sometimes you see the players that you're watching and you'll realize that the strategy that they're basically committing to isn't working. And you often wonder is, when do you actually take the time to take a step back and think, hey, is what I'm doing actually working? And if it's not, because it's always a question again, is when you realize for sometimes when our athletes lose, is when did you realize the strategy wasn't working? And the question then is, when did you decide to change tact? When did you try to change things up? That's always a key thing. And I think if we do get better at this process, people will obviously recognize situations better and be able to adapt and adjust. Because another one too, what we see as well is when players are in a position too, and often you can sort of see it when they're playing someone that they perceive as a better player, or it's going to be a big win or a big moment in their development. And you'll see whatever they're doing to get to a lead, whether it's closing out the set, they may potentially change their strategy. And it might not necessarily be through a tactical, deliberate decision. It might also be that maybe some of those passengers are jumping on the bus, a little bit of anxiousness or nervousness. But it gives you an opportunity too, when you come back and sit down and you can sort of, again, recommit to this idea of, this is what's got me to this point in the match. This is what I need to continue to do. Because we've all been there. We've all been there plenty of times when we've got to difficult situations and somehow change strategy. So if you can get really good, to me, at this ability to recommit, obviously that's because, again, once a decision's made on what you're trying to do, I think it's a lot easier. It's obviously up to the execution, which can change from day to day and match to match and game to game. But it's a really, really good point, Anthony. I think it's a really, really something I want to stress.
Yeah, and just in listening to you then, Luke, guys, what Luke said there is, sometimes you will reflect and then intentionally make the choice to change based on your reflection, right? You're learning in terms of what's happening in the match. Then sometimes you will accidentally change without really recognizing, and that's the nervous example, right? So then in that example, when you sit down at the change of ends, that's where you might say, okay, I'm trying to play a smart, aggressive game style, as a very simple example of what you're trying to commit to. But hey, wait a minute, how many times did I actually commit to that style in the last 2 games? Oh, I only did it 4 out of 12. So that gives you the opportunity to pick up when you ask this what stopped me question. Oh, the passengers have started urging me to just make it, or just hope that they miss. So it's just crucial, because this is your best chance, right, to sit down at the change of ends and use this vital time to do those two things: either make an intentional adjustment when you step back out for the next two games, or recognize that during the last two games you've accidentally changed. And that's a great example of what often happens from Luke. So yeah, fantastic. And then finally, as we step up and we're going back out for the next two games, we're doing what I just said. We've decided by this time, okay? And as we walk out, I love it when my players say the statement, no matter what, for the next two games, I will commit to. And your job is then to see for the next two games, how many points can you get the yes, good job, right? The yes, good job is I've finished the point and I can successfully say that I just committed to the thing that I chose, okay? And you're committing to the same thing as the last two games. You're committing to an adjustment based on your reflection, or you could completely change it. Maybe there's a key strategy thing that you've recognized and you make a complete change, okay? And so that's really our process, right? So we want to relax and rest. We want to reconnect and remind ourselves of our big purpose, okay? You can have that additional mindful moment, but the main thing there after you rest for me is just continually reminding yourself of why am I here? What's most important to me about playing this tennis match? Then we want to do our reflections, okay? What's happened? Have I learned anything? How well have I committed? Okay. And then do I want to change or not? And then as we step up, we're making this our key statement. No matter what, for the next two games, this is what I'm going to try to commit to point for point. Okay. So that's a really good process to go through. So I think at Luke, if I'm correct, in the next couple of days at Olympic Park, you'll have the opportunity to work on these steps in point play.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to obviously
Park, then perhaps we can with this form, Luke, how would we get it to guys that aren't Olympic Park? Because they could work on it themselves, certainly.
Yeah, most definitely. They could easily just, I mean, I'm happy for people to email me at luke@voyagetennis.com and I can fire it across. Yeah. So happy to get that across to everyone, or we could potentially just can I tell you what we can do? We can at the end of this, we can send it to the entire database. We can actually just send that across there to everyone that's registered for the webinar.
Okay. Now, Luke, did you have any final comments on that?
No, I think I'd really like it. And again, anytime you can keep something super simple like that, and the idea of the 4 R's, I just think it makes a lot of sense. One thing I do want to say though is, again, one thing about lockdown that I did experience, I had a huge opportunity to watch a lot more tennis. Obviously, typically quite busy day to day. And it was one of the underlying things, and I know with a lot of our academy athletes, we shared this, but whether it was Novak Djokovic or Emma Raducanu or Leila Fernandez, at their post-match conferences, it was really interesting to me. I kept hearing the same thing over and over. And again, I know our academy players have seen me play it so many times now. It's literally, they all said the exact same thing. One of the questions that really grabbed me was Raducanu. It was one of the first questions they asked her after they basically, it was Pam Shriver doing for ESPN. She asked, like, what's changed? What's changed between Wimbledon, where she obviously had some challenges there, leaving the court, not being able to come back, to winning the US Open? And I mean, she said two things that jumped out. The first was, I played an insane amount of matches. That was the first thing that she said. Obviously made me physically tougher, but also got me used to the situation. And the second thing she said was that I stuck to the process. I really came back to my process. And this is where you look at it. This is such a simple process, which can make such a world of difference. And that's, again, it was, Leila said the same thing. I mean, Novak talked about the hurricane of emotions, the tornado that comes through. And again, he said, I've figured out my process to help me deal with this. And that's ultimately, again, it's just another mechanism, because I know one thing that I see is, again, a lot of the athletes I'm looking at that are here is their ability to play a high level point. I mean, everyone can play great tennis. And what we've got to aim to do is put ourselves in the right frame of mind to make sure. And again, it's not about becoming a better, if we can lift our base level to being a lot closer to our best tennis, that's where you start really seeing a difference. And this is something to me that can really help, is making sure in the right frame of mind to play each point, to play each game to the best of your ability. So I think it's a a really simple process, but it's something you have to really work hard to perfect.
Yeah, and we'll never perfect it, but to keep continual improvement. You've just triggered something in my mind. Is James Duckworth? He's a great example of an Aussie who's doing fantastic now. And I was talking to Sean Fife, who's his physio when he's at home, and does a lot of strength and conditioning and movement work with him, and continues to communicate with him when he's on the road. And the two words he talks about with Duckworth, and this is just so true, is continual improvement. He is completely focused in every conversation. Sean talks about, I've never talked to someone who is so just always talking about, this is where I'm at, this is what I need to work on next to get better. And his ability to continually improve through his career, through all the injuries and so forth, and now is just paying off to where it's completely realistic for him to become a seed in the slams pretty quickly. And it's not out of question for him to be top 20 in the world. And from a guy who for many, many years was slogging it out from, the 100 to 200 rankings for many years. Not many people would have predicted that he'd make top 50, which he is now. And it's just simply through his ability to do these things we're talking about and continually focus on the things he needs to commit to in practice and matches to improve his skills. So that's a great purpose of his that he is doing a fantastic job in, and has for many years now. Okay.
Well, you've triggered something in me. It's
okay.
Actually it's called the power of tiny gains, Anthony. I know with our academy athletes, that's exactly what it is. So I know I sort of planted a seed with our athletes today, talking about if you can be 1% better every day, what it ends up being. If you want to have a little quick search, I'd encourage you to have a look at the power of tiny gains.
Yeah,
it's a really interesting concept. That's again, it's a great opportunity to see how much you can improve in a year.
Yep. Okay, now let's now introduce this worksheet that I like players to use for match play, and you guys will get an opportunity at Olympic Park on Friday, I think, to use this worksheet. So we just want to introduce that quickly to give you guys the ideas of what we're doing with the worksheet. It's pretty simple, okay? And once again, that it's a simple way to track our matches, prepare and review and reflect matches. So there's simply two questions that we want to reflect on, two steps we want to do before the match. So before you play on Friday, you'll reflect on these two steps. So before the match, Luke just talked about the idea of processes. Decide on what are your processes that you're accountable for when you come to the end of the match. And this is not going to be the outcome score. And it's not about how well you hit the ball that day. It's about, like we worked on in the ABC routine, it's about what are you going to be saying and committing to as you enter each new point. You're going to use your keywords to commit to what you want to go for and your intention for the point. And then you'll also reflect on why they're important to you. Okay, so this is connecting back to that idea of purpose. You want your committed actions to be guided by your biggest purpose. And I'll give you a quick example of this. If your purpose is just to win the next tournament, and that's your greatest purpose in life, then you'll choose things that simply increase the chance of trying to win the tournament, right? So it may be as simple as the strategy that gives you the best chance. But through development, if your biggest purpose is to become the best player you can be in several years, which often will be the case for you guys, then it's not as simple as just committing to things that increase the chance of success in this match or in this tournament, right? Your purpose, we need to reflect on, well, what are things I can do in this match that will help me become a better player then I can carry forward skills that will influence me over years. So that's an example when you're asking these questions, why is what I'm committing to important to me? That's a really important reflection, okay, that I want you guys to do when you're choosing your commitments. Of course, we want to think smart and learn the skills of strategy and increase the chance of winning and competing well right now. But we want to keep in mind that bigger purpose as well when we're choosing what we're committing to. So that's our first step. And our second step is, what about this match is most likely to challenge my ability to commit to those chosen actions and when will they likely come on the bus? When will they likely show up in the match? So first we're doing our commitments, and what I like with predicted challenges is to build our awareness. The more aware we are of the potential things that will stop me committing before I step on the court, the more likely, like we just talked about, the change of ends, I might notice what's happening, right? So often the reason you guys don't compete effectively is you start getting caught up in difficult passengers, you face challenges, and it becomes a bit of a blur, okay? And so if we have awareness of what's likely to stop us, and we use our change of ends reflections to check in on, okay, how well am I committing? And then what's stopping me if I'm not committing at the level I want, then that's really two great things to do. So that's what we want to reflect on pre-match. And then you're going to go out, you're going to apply your ABC routine as well as you can. You're going to try to apply your change of ends routine as well as you can during the match. So they're going to be the two goals for during the match. And then after the match, we want to do our post-match reflection questions. So this is what I call the commitment score, first of all. And so we start with about how many points did I play? What I tend to do is 6 points per game. So you add up the amount of games that you played and you average it as 6 points per game. So 6-4-6-4 is 120 points about. And then we go, of the total amount of points we played, how many times did I finish the point being achieving a yes, good job? Remember, our yes, good job is when we answer the question, did I commit my actions to what I said I was going to do when we put in our process actions? They can change at the change of ends, right? You can change these along the way, but for whatever you're committing to, how many yes times out of 120 points did I, if I'm completing the ABC routine and answering that key question at the end of the point, did I commit my actions to what I said I was going to? The key here is we're not concerned with the point outcome. We're not asking anything about the outcome of the point or even how well I executed my skills. We are asking about the intention and effort to commit to the pre-match agreed goals or the processes that you've chosen when you've stepped up from the change of ends. And then of the points that I didn't commit, what was the most common reason? So we're reflecting on, we're doing a bigger, larger reflection of, well, what did stop me? Okay, we're trying to learn about what stopped me. Step 4 is responding to the difficult passengers. So remember, the passengers on our bus are the uninvited, unintentional thoughts and feelings that show up as we compete, okay? They're the thoughts about the outcome. Often the passengers will be talking about the outcome in our mind, and they'll be talking about how well are we executing our skills, okay? So what were the main difficult passengers that actually came on the bus? When did they come on the bus? What were they saying? If we're not able to recognize the actual thoughts, we might make a guess, right? What do I think when I was in that situation? If my passengers were talking from the back of the bus, what would have they been saying? Once again, it's developing awareness, right? Awareness of our passengers. Then this is the second key score. So our first key score is our yes, good job score. Of all the points that I played, how many points did I get yes, good jobs? Or if I didn't answer the key question every point, how many points would have I got yes, good job if I had asked that key question? Okay, so that is a vital score. That's the biggest indicator of how quickly you'll improve, is this commitment score, okay? The second most important score is my responding to passengers score. I'm asking, compared to how I traditionally respond to passengers in similar circumstances. So you're trying to look back and say, well, what happened today? What were the challenges I faced? When I faced similar challenges 3 months ago, how would have I responded? And if I give myself a 5, so this is really important, so listen closely on this one. I'm saying I responded about as well today to the difficult passengers as I would have 3 months ago if I faced a similar challenge, okay? Our goal here is to get above 5 as often as possible, okay? Because if I get above 5, I'm saying today I responded to the passengers a little better. If I give myself 5.5 or 6, a little better than I would have a few months ago. And this is the idea of the tiny gains that Luke was talking about, or the continual improvement. That a 5.5 might mean for 2 extra points in this match, you were able to get to that place of commitment on the new point when maybe a couple of months ago you might have been caught up in passengers. Okay. And that's this, it's, you know, I love that idea that what was it? The with the tiny gains, what's the statement or the law of tiny gains, is it? Or
the power of tiny gains.
Power of tiny gains. So all you need is 2 extra points, right? Of better responding to passengers. You get your 5.5. And like Luke said, if you're every match you play 1 or 2 extra points better in responding, where you might say, yep, 3 months ago, I think I might not have got back to commitment in that situation, in that point. Today I did. Okay. And you just do it 1 or 2 extra points. You add them up over time, you are going to be a massively better player within 6 months. Okay. So that's what it takes. It's consistently getting over 5, right? That's all. If you get consistently over 5, you're improving your skills. And then the final one is more about our purpose. We're just checking in. How I traditionally enjoy the challenges of competing in similar circumstances. How much do I enjoy it today? So this is about, for me, it's an important one in your match play to try to enjoy the challenges that you face, right? The challenges that show up. So that's another 1 to 10 score, with 5 being average. So that's our competitive score worksheet. And it's a really great one that if I'm working with a player individually, this is the form I'm getting them to send me after matches or talk to them before matches. So Luke, any questions or comments from your point of view on that process?
Yeah, again, it's a really good tool, because what we're talking about here, and again, don't want to sort of sidetrack, is about the power of tiny gains. But if you do look it up, you see you can actually improve by 38 times. So you can become a 38 times better player over the course of a year. And I know I was talking to Steve Coley, one of our performance coaches at Olympic Park, and he said there's some really good information about Steve Johnson. And Steve's a really good example there of someone that was told his whole life that, look, you're not tracking to be a professional. And he had the idea, and again, a very strong mind, that these are the things that I wanted to improve. And he had a lot of targeted focus to improving specific areas. And he just kept achieving those things, to being, again, going to a college where he wasn't even in the starting lineup, to, again, working his way up the roster, to becoming number 1 on the team, and to become a top 20 player at the back of it. I mean, when you look at his trajectory, you just couldn't imagine what was possible. And that's what we're talking about here, is his 2 really good, I guess, mechanisms to help people improve. So again, we do know this is the big separator, and that's why I'm always so thankful for your time, Rossi, to come out and work with us, because again, these things are something that everyone can do. You can, if you can apply this in time, you'd start seeing rapid improvement. So again, really, really good stuff.
Awesome. Now, do we want to, if anyone's got a question, okay, maybe we open it up before we finish, or a comment? I'll stop sharing my screen here.
Yeah, why was sort of people are thinking of any questions there? I know I got a personal message there. Someone was saying you can have the ability there to share those documents in the chat, so everyone can actually.
Okay.
Do you know how to do that?
Let me see. File. Hold on 1 second.
So
I have done it before.
Yeah.
If
not, we could. If not, but again, guys, I mean, you have one of the world's sort of premier sports sites that's here, so it's a good opportunity to ask any questions. But what I'll do while they're thinking, I'd ask you, Rossi, is have you seen someone that struggled in this area, and they've committed to making these changes? How long did it take them to making this become, I guess, part of their sort of part of their process, where they did it really without thinking?
There's a few markers I have. So when I'm working with players, I look at 3 months. So 3 months is a chance. I don't want to say this is easy, right? Like, it is hard work. It's hard work to change habits. It's hard work to do this stuff, but you only have to improve it a tiny bit at a time. That's the key. That's the key message. If you do that in 3 months, you should be starting to see improved results, and 6 months you'd be able to see significant improvements if you're working effectively at this. I mean, I would tell you that with my individual clients who are working using the competitive score worksheet and working a lot on this, so I've got a group and they match well with kids you're looking to go to college and improve UTR. That group, I think it's 6 players. The 6, they've averaged 1.2 UTR point improvements per 6 months on average doing this. So it usually takes a little while to get going, but if you're working effectively, think of it like physical fitness, right? At the start, you start doing the work, it's hard, you're tired, you might even get a little worse in the first little bit because you're worn out. And then slowly you start improving your skills, it starts building momentum. And then, so physical fitness is not a bad way to compare it. Yeah.
We've got a couple of questions here. Is again, what 1% is the most commonly chosen among the pros? I know I haven't answered that, but I'll throw that across to you first.
So in terms of committing,
well, I think it's in general. In general,
yeah.
it's quite an open question there. The way I'm reading that is what 1%ers are most commonly chosen among the pros.
Yeah, I think if I chose one thing that's most important for you guys to improve, it's your ability to respond to the difficult passengers on the bus, the uninvited thoughts and feelings. And that takes awareness, as we're talking about, noticing. Just the ability to notice what our mind is saying, okay, is a crucial skill to practice. The other one as part of that is what I call emotional fitness. That is our ability to tolerate and allow those difficult thoughts and feelings to be there without being swept up by them. So that's bigger than a 1%er. Like if you can just make the tiniest improvement in that, you'll tend to improve your outcomes massively. So that would be mine. Luke?
Well, it's interesting. I would answer it probably from 2 angles. Is what 1%ers are most commonly chosen among the pros? I would say among pros in general, it's actually the physicality of tennis. It's small things that they look at, but amongst the best, again, talking about what Novak was talking about after his semi-final win at the US Open, he basically said everyone can play, everyone can hit an amazing ball, and what really matters is being able to deliver under pressure. And that's where, again, we know he's obviously really open about all the meditation work that he does, all the mental development work, and I think this is where the real sort of change that we're seeing is the idea of players working with psychologists, players working on their mental strength. Again, because we know it is the most important facet. So that's where I would really believe that it is. So I hope that's a good answer for you there. Can we have another question here as well? Is how can I remove anger in the middle of the match and come back to focus? So there's a question for you there, Anthony.
Yeah. So what I would like you guys to do is when you think of an experience like anger, try to separate the feeling of anger, which is in our body, and the anger thoughts from the actions of acting angrily. And so our goal is to get more control over the actions, right? Our goal is to be able to get focused on the action that we want to do, even if I'm feeling angry. And so with my approach, I'd encourage you guys to not so much have the expectation that you're going to be able to remove the feelings of anger or the frustration passengers that are chatting in the back of the bus saying things like, that's not good enough, you should be doing better, and things like that. What we want to be able to do is get fitter at being able to have those passengers on the bus, but then refocus and commit to the actions of a helpful process rather than acting angrily, okay? And so that process is what I talked about before. The best thing you want to do there is to notice the angry feelings in your body or the angry thoughts and practice being more accepting of those feelings and thoughts, just like you try to be more accepting of physical discomfort when you're trying to become physically fitter. And once you do that, just noticing that they're there, then you want to shift your focus back to, okay, what action do I need to commit to on the next point that is helpful, rather than just acting automatically based on that angry feeling. In the perfect world, we'd be able to get rid of the angry feelings and thoughts. But if you're a competitive person and you really want to win and you are driven and you're competitive, feeling angry and frustrated is part of the experience, right? And feeling frustration thoughts and having frustrated thoughts on the bus.
Yeah, it's It's really good advice there. It's really good. Again, obviously we're conscious of your time, guys. But if there's no more questions, I'll wrap this up. But Anthony, again, really appreciate your time, your insights. I think there's some great information there. Again, sort of, having that change of end routines there with our 4Rs, which is again something that we can all remember, and I think it's something that we hope to see you all practice. I know for our Olympic Park Academy athletes, definitely something we are going to be working on both tomorrow and again in our UTR match play on Friday, as well as obviously moving forward, because it is such an important part of tennis. Again, so much is actually spent in between your ears rather than actually hitting balls. So a really good thing there. And again, with our obviously score sheet there, what we'll do is we'll try to make sure we get that across to everyone, because I think it's a great way to actually be able to measure and sort of track and improve these areas, which at times can be quite difficult to do.
Yeah, sorry, Luke, I couldn't find the link. I've done it before, but for some reason it's not showing for me the ability to share the files. But certainly, yeah, if we can get those out to anyone that was registered.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, but all right, again, on behalf of all of us, Anthony, I wanted to thank you again for your time. So really appreciate it and look forward to seeing everyone come back ready for tournament time, being that strong, tough, competitive athletes that we want to see. So thanks again, mate. So have a good night, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, guys. And like Luke has said, and I've said, I really encourage you guys to recognize the importance of this and work effectively little by little over time on it.
All righty.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.